Good afternoon. Today's engine test run is my brand new JBA 75A ABC engine. Now I just picked this up the other day and oh man, it's so tight turning over. I shouldn't do that. I was considering maybe heating it up first because it's so tight, but I think I might be able to get it to start by hand. So this will be the first run, first time I've ever tried to run it. The manual says to open the needle valve 1.5 turns from fully closed, so I've got it open 2 just to be on the safe side. I've got some Omega 5% fuel here, an OS number 8 glow plug, and a Master Airscrew 13/6 wood prop here. So let's fire this thing up and see how this beauty runs. Oh. Okay, so that was a rather peculiar first run. I had an OS number 8 plug in it initially, and I couldn't get it to fire. And I changed the needle valve setting to what the book said, 1.5 turns open. And it was just seeming like it was flooded. So I took the plug out and shook it on my hand. I didn't feel any fuel on it, so I'm like, how could it be flooded? So I ended up going and getting a different plug just in case that OS didn't look as good as I thought it did, and I put a K&B plug in there, and basically the same thing happened. I prime it, flip it, doesn't really fire. So it was weird. So I disconnected the fuel line, and then I got it to fire, and it was running. So it seemed like it was flooded because it ran for 4 or 5 seconds without the fuel line even connected. So I ran over here, connected the line, and then it continued to run. And the setting, the needle valve setting, was still what the book said, 1.5 turns open. I couldn't go to full throttle at all because it wanted to keep shutting down. So the book saying to start this at 1.5 turns from fully closed, open from fully closed, is way wrong. Way too lean for that engine. Although it was weird because it seemed like I could flood it, priming it, but yet it didn't want to run at full throttle at that setting because it wanted to shut down. And the top got real hot, so I just started opening the needle, as you saw, and I opened the needle until it would at least sustain full throttle. And I didn't run full throttle for very long. I just kind of started varying the RPM levels because it was already kind of acting weird and it was pretty warm. So I went down to an idle setting. It doesn't have a throttle stop screw on this, so you have to just set it at a low speed. I'm not sure, I'll probably have to play with the low speed adjustment here eventually. And it would idle about 4,000 RPM and sound really, but that's okay. I don't expect it to really idle perfectly on the first tank anyway, so that's not a big deal. But it still has this sound at top dead center. It's a very, very, very tight pinch initially, and my electric starter was like, I'm not even going to attempt to turn this thing over, and it didn't, so I had to hand start it. I didn't have any choice. It still has a very tight pinch, even though the engine is still pretty warm. So interesting first run for this engine. I wasn't expecting to have such a difficult time getting it started, and I wasn't really expecting it to act so weird, because the other thing that was odd to me was it seemed like even though I had, I don't know what the needle's at now, 2.5 turns open, I don't know, it seemed like at full throttle it wanted to be okay, but I felt, and it was hitting like 9,000 something, but I felt like I was feeling spray coming out of the carb. I don't know that I saw it, but I felt it. And of course this exhaust has got a bunch of black goo in it, so it was really kind of working the metal in. So an interesting run. I'm going to let it cool and then do another run with it, but that's the first interesting run of this JBA 75A engine. So we'll see what it comes up, see how it does from here on out. Thank you.